this is Chris with Clever Unicorn Games and the Unicorn Collective, back with another interview. Today I have Mihail Ivanov with me. How are you doing today, Mihail?
Hey, all good. Thanks for having me, Chris.
No problem. Tell me, first of all, what is it that you like to do when you're not creating or playing games? What is it that takes up your spare time?
Well, it's not exactly my spare time because my main occupation is a web developer. So usually that takes, 8 to 10 hours a day. I would say creating board games and playing board games is my spare time. So I really put a lot to it. Still though, I guess I would say that I'm an outdoor person and I go to beaches mostly. I go to ski, so I travel a lot and I like a lot. I really like games that you can take with yourself when traveling, because usually that's really the points of time that I can engage with friends and have longer sessions and so on.
What would you say is your favorite board game? The one
Oh,
favorite.
the one favorite, no, I can really can go with that. But if I have to just pick one, I would say Eldritch Horror because that's the first game I bought, and I still love it immensely. I haven't played it in a year, I'll be honest, but I still love it. I still feel strongly about it.
Yeah, that is one of the only cooperative games that I enjoy. That's really good fun. I've played that twice, and it's what I rarely play cooperative games. I just don't really get on that well with cooperative games. But with that, it was like a puzzle to figure out, and I really enjoyed it. So the first time we played it, we got beat. We got beat really quickly. But straight away after that, I was like, you know what, I want to play that again. And then we agreed to meet up a couple of days later to play again, because it's not a short game. It can take quite a while to play.
No,
But
no,
yeah, we met up again, and then we beat it, and we beat one of the harder elder gods as well. And the reward from doing it was just so good that yeah, I
that.
really enjoyed it. So yeah, very very good game. What kind of games, or what type of games, or even a single game? What was it that inspired you to start making games yourself?
Well, I would really say all of them. I mean, just playing the game and having this kind of fun really made me want to do it. But I've started, with game design a bit earlier. I was really into video games, but the thing with video games is that, okay, you can design something good, but you need a prototype. I mean, more or less with board games, you can read, you can set the rules out, you can start, combining things like that. But for a video game to work, mostly the biggest part of its mechanics is how the player interferes with the environment. How you go about. So you need a lot of resource to create that. You need to create your levels, to create your characters, to create some animations, and so on. And on video games, I would say I had some success. One of my proudest achievements is winning the Sofia Game Jam, which is part of the Global Game Jam event, which was really educational on terms of what people expect to see in a game. To vote it up, to like it, because they don't play it really when you vote up, and what takes for a game to be created. So that really helped me a lot. And from then on, just playing with friends. I like this thing, I like this thing, and I was like, well, maybe then I can create something that combines all the stuff I like. I can add something to it, that I can think of, and creating games could could do it for me. And I mentioned, I mentioned to you that I was working in television. I was actually a script writer, so mostly writing jokes and stuff like that. So for me, entertaining people, it's really something that I like. That gives me a lot of pleasure. And actually, coming back, I can remember my childhood, how we were thinking up a lot of games, you know, as children do. But actually, at that point in Bulgaria, we basically the make your own adventure books were super popular. I mean, for some reason, some guy got them from the US and they just started producing them. They got real big, so we had like 5 or 6 really good authors that were putting out a game almost every 6 months and so on. So a lot of children, we were just sitting down, opening these games. Okay, so now what we do? Now what we do? And I started creating my own stories, without the book or anything. We just started creating our own stories, going through that, and this feeling kind of stayed with me. And testing with Arcana Magica now, play testing mostly, and just meeting people, playing with them, and see the joy in their eyes. I mean, it sounds cliche, but it's really what brings a lot of joy. I would say so. That's my main motivation.
When coming up with a game, where do you go to first? So you have your idea. Where do you go from the idea stage? What do you start on first?
I would say it's thematics first. When designing a game, because, okay, so maybe I should just put a little parenthesis here. So what we got right now is Arcana Magica, which is at its final stage, before launching on Kickstarter, and there's a few things in the works. I would say I always start with the thematics, and I always try to figure out how to which mechanics to use or mechanics to create, to say so, to kind of reproduce the real life feeling of the theme into a game. Meaning that if you have a survival game, you have turns, and on each turn something needs to happen that would challenge your survival, for example, or gathering stuff like that for survivals and so on. So I would say I always go with the thematics first and try to see what mechanics reproduce a thematic in its setting.
So you're already on your way to start launching a Kickstarter in September. What in the creation of your game so far, hurdle or barrier have you hit where you thought, I don't know how I'm going to get past this? And then how did you overcome that barrier?
All right. So I would say the biggest one is going from prototype to something that people would buy. I mean, that's really the biggest hurdle because, I mean, luckily for us, we started with the art more or less. I mean, we use tarot art, so our illustrator already created most of the tarot cards. So this is a pretty important part, and usually that's what prototypes lack in most cases, because you're a designer, you just start with this templated cards and so on. So putting some art to it, I mean, making it look good, it's a really important part, and then it's kind of preparing those for production. I mean, it seems kind of straightforward, but it never is, and that's really what I saw. Overcoming it, it was just labor. I would say just um, well, as I mentioned, I'm a web developer. I became a web developer on my own, just learning through stuff. So I thought to myself, if you can become a developer, you can learn, different software that would enable you. And at the end, it's also about finding, the good friends or professionals that can help you out. So I would say work. I mean, bottom line is just what you don't know, and how something wants to look. Just work for it. Just baby steps. One by one. Just look at okay, that's how it's done. Let's do it. Okay, now that looks good. Increments. It's what we do in development. You just start from something small and you increment to it until it becomes a big software. I think it's the same with board games. Just move it up, and persistence.
We touched on it before we started recording. You originally came up with the idea for the game when you were gifted the tarot deck, which was from an artist friend, wasn't it? A friend who's an
Yeah,
artist. What did they think when you went to them saying, "I like your deck of cards, your tarot deck. I'm going to make a board game out of it." What did they say to that?
well, she was thrilled. She was thrilled mostly because tarot is really interesting, but it's kind of a niche thing, not everybody is into tarot. Some people are even afraid from it. I mean, they see it, as an occult, as something that's way out of line, that, it goes in some mystical parts where people shouldn't belong. So I would say she was thrilled because it was something that's gonna make her work accessible. I mean, that's gonna make people, see her work, and at the end, if you're an artist, that's what that's what you want to happen. At the end, you want people, to look at the stuff you did. And she loves tarot, and the thing is that, bringing tarot to this uh, to the whole board game audience, which is enormous, it really made her proud, because at the end, this is kind of I would say, a contribution to the tarot scene in of sorts.
I may not believe in that kind of thing, but I understand people's beliefs are important, and I understand that as well. Some of the artwork on these cards is beautiful. I mean, I've seen tarot decks, and the artwork that goes into it is, yeah, it's really nice. I've seen some really beautiful ones, and I like the way that they're all individual as well. Like different people will have different decks, and they will be unique as well. There'll be decks that one tarot reader or somebody interested in that sort of thing has that is completely different to anything else that anybody else has because they may have had it made up themselves, or they may have even illustrated it themselves.
Yeah, I mean, the funny part actually about tarot is that it didn't start about reading. I mean, reading came up after, really. I mean, yeah, basically the poker cards that we use, I mean, the European playing deck and the poker deck, everything that we use, it came from tarot, because it was just a lot of cards that were used. So basically, on fairs and all that, certain group of people just kind of got adopting it and using it for reading, because the major arcana of tarot uses well, kind of this, how do I call them? Well, in the Jungian terms, it's miss the word, archetypes, really archetypes. So it's strength, temperance, the devil, the tower, end of world, judgment day, and so on. So they decided that, you can use that to kind of look at the future and to provide glimpse on the future. But from what I know, and actually it's pretty murky, especially if tarot coming to Europe. But at the start, it was mainly used for playing. Really, reading on tarot came up after it.
So it started off as a game and then turned into
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, there you go. That's a bit of information I did not know. Thank you for that.
Yeah, well, so I was pretty surprised myself
I'm pretty
learning
sure people
about.
watching this as well will be surprised by that as well, so that's great.
Yeah, and I'm sure, half of them would say, "Oh no, that's not true." Actually, it started, as a reading thing, because, as I said, it's really old. It's actually pretty old. I mean, it came to Europe in the 15th century, but there's people talking about it. That it came from ancient Egypt, that it came from Babylon, and so on. So it's really hard tracing it back, which which really kind of proves that it's pretty old.
Well, if we have any immortals that were alive in the 15th century, put a comment in underneath the video on where it actually came from. Um, have you ever played a game that you really did not like? And you don't have to name it, but what was the mechanic, or was it the theme, or what was it that put you off that game?
Well, it's not just one. I would say I have pretty strong issues with most of worker placement games, and yeah, I know. But the thing is that for me, the most kind of a negative mechanic is not being able to do what you want to do because of someone took your place. I mean, that literally kills me. So in that manner, a game that I really admire, to say so, is Anachrony. But a game that I would never play again, it's Anachrony again. I mean, I get why people like it. I absolutely. I mean, if I wasn't, because you said you're not much of a co-op player. I'm mostly a co-op player. I'm a person that likes to go on adventure. Everybody, just trying to kill the boss or whatever happens there. And in worker placement, there's there's this kind of competitiveness. I mean, you have to build the whole engine. You have to build the whole thing, to get it running. And I'm really into that. Let's put that into turns. I would have this resource, so I can buy this, and you just create this wonderful master plan, and you cannot do it because someone was. Had the turn before you, and then they put the last production thing or something like that. So yeah, and yeah, I would say Anachrony was the game that kind of put me off just because of how complex it is in terms of planning ahead.
Why is it that you make games? What is it that drives you to make games?
Well, as I mentioned, my main motivation is, as I said, just bringing joy to people. But what I like about, what I enjoy doing it, and actually I was speaking with that on that with my girlfriend, when, a month ago we were finishing our Game Boy's design and all that. It really felt good. I mean, working on it really feels good. I mean, I like my development job and I wouldn't trade it really, but I really go to work on things that I enjoy doing. And I would say, well, we kind of spoke about engine building and things like that. I would say creating a game, there is this, reverse engineering part of it. Like, what do I like in games and what do I want to put in games to make them fun? So it's again this puzzle solving part, to make it interesting enough and engaging enough, to gather an audience, and to really bring out an audience, to bring out the best in the audience. I would say it's real challenging and real nice feeling, because what I really like about games, and what really catches my eye into a game, is having each playthrough differently. I mean, based on how people are. I mean, their characters, way they react to environment and to different stimuli, to say so. I mean, more scientifically, changing the game. It is what really drives me, to create games. Because I mean, I can give an example with the photosynthesis. I don't know if you've played it.
Yeah, I have. Yeah,
So
yeah.
ba- what I really liked about it is that I mean, when you play with different people, there's never, the same forest being built. I mean, there's obviously the random parts of it and so on, but no, there's people that, okay, so I put, this tree in the corner so I don't interfere with anyone. And there's people that, okay, so I put it next to you because one of those turns it would block your sun, and that's the first tree in the game. So once you start from that, I really like how it builds up. For example, Hive is one of my favorites in that aspect because I've never played the same game of Hive at the start, because that's what I mean. That's when the random part of the game, of the engine of the game, it's still not working. So there's a lot of repetitive actions in most games, for the start. I mean, as you mentioned, side probably the same. The first turn is side is almost the same for everyone. Yet, games that let you direct the game in different directions from the absolute start, based on just how people react to it. It's real nice, and it's really what drives it forward, kind of bringing this creativity into people.
How has the state of the world at the moment, and I expect in Spain it's getting kind of hair raising again over there.
Yeah.
How has it affected the way that you're designing and making games?
I would say on one part it was beneficial, mostly because quarantine left out a lot of spare time. So we can, as I mentioned, it's kind of our second. This is second job, so it really left out some spare time. On the other hand, I would say probably what every other designer would say, it's missing conventions. I mean, conventions are the place where you really meet people, where you really get feedback, when you really can test out, what if what you did is it's all right. And to meet people, I mean, basically, I've met my manufacturers on Essen. I've met most of a lot of our fans. Met a lot of I made a lot of changes on my game, based on what I saw in Essen and what I experienced there. So I would say that's really something that that I miss. On the other part, at the end, we can see even what's happening on Kickstarter now. I don't think it affected board games that much because quarantine or not, you still can meet at least 5 or 10 people, and you need four to play a decent board game. And at the end, it was beneficial for board games at all because a lot of people realized because you need if you have to spend your time at home, you need to make it entertaining. And uh, I think that's why board games came up big as well, as a whole. Is video games are nice, but they are solitary thing. I mean, you just sit down, you put your headphone on, you just sit, you looking at the screen, and that's not really engaging. In our homes, we live with our loved ones, we live with our kids, we live with sometimes our parents, who knows who, flatmates, people like that. And the really nice thing about board games is that you sit down, you're all together, it's very social, and it can really make any quarantine or any kind of confinement a lot more bearable. Because after all, it's an escapist thing. I mean, it's the beautiful thing about games. You go somewhere else, and you solve the problem somewhere else, and you try to win somewhere else, and it's just this poor entertainment uh, that's at the core of it. And I think situations like that really highlight it.
Yeah,
Really,
I
really.
think I think we're going to end up in a few months' time starting to see some of the best developed games we've ever seen. Because I think so many developers have been able to just sit and do nothing but develop while being in quarantine that we're probably going to end up with some of the best games ever coming out maybe beginning of next year, because they've been so
Yeah.
well developed up until then. So yeah, keep eyes out for those
That's
games coming.
yeah, for sure. I would say the effort that a lot of people put into digital playtesting, and what Tabletopia and Tabletop Simulator did, really helps a lot because you need playtesting. I mean, there's a lot of opinions on that, but you need playtesting. And as I said, conventions were a good place for that. So if the good playtesters, because I've seen amazing people that give amazing feedback, if we manage to create communities like that, I would think you'll be right, and we will have one of the best developed games coming up next year.
What would be one piece of advice that you would give a new designer with an idea? And what would you say to that designer getting into the business? And this fly is on my hat
um,
now. Go away, fly.
all right, so mhm. I would say, first of all, persist with it. If you have an idea, just go with it. And the other advice is, and that's advice I also give to my students and my friends, even colleagues and all that, is put your time in it. What the thing that everyone can see is how much time you've put into something. There's no cheating that. I mean, you can be the best designer or the best artist or the best whatever. Ho- However much time you put into something always shows up. So even if you have the most brilliant idea ever, just work on it day and night. So what I would say, just sit down, try it out, see what goes on the other day, improve it, get some feedback, improve it, get some feedback, improve it, just get into that cycle and make sure you just spend enough time with your game because it always shows. Because I can, from playtesting my game and well, playtesting and developing as a whole, I would say there were things that I discovered after 10 hours of playtesting, after 50, after 100. And, after I can say we made like 300 or 400 hours by now. And I would say there's things that you can find out and improve the gameplay immensely after so much time of playtesting. There's never a moment of, done, perfect. No, no, no such thing until it's all printed. Put your efforts into it and really persist. I mean, I would say after having a year of experience, of trying to self-publish and so on, it's a drag. It works on your emotions. It works on you personally, and it works on your budget as well. And at all, having all this combined, you start thinking, am I doing the right thing? Is this the right way to go? Is this what I should do? And especially with games, it's extremely hard if you're trying to make a career with that. Because if you say I want to be a lawyer, you know, your mom and dad, your parents, your grandparents, all of them, they would help you financially, they would help you emotionally, they would motivate oh, you become a lawyer. We all want to see that in the family. But if you say I want to be a game designer, that's a no-no. So and people won't be that supportive because it's not that much of a popular thing, and people want something more secure. I mean, that's in terms of I can say that I didn't have that, but on the other hand, I do have my stable job, I do have my career, and that's what. But it's still hard to keep myself going. Just saying yourself, that's it, I'm done. I mean, I cannot go on. It's draining emotionally, it's draining my hours. I just want to sit, I just want to play the games that I have. I just want to have fun with friends. I just want to go out. And instead of that, you're sitting at home, you're working on something. And especially self-publishing, I think there's a lot that you must learn, and you always learn the hard way. You always learn by making mistakes, and making mistake, it's always hard to get up after one,
Yeah,
especially
I've certainly
with
made
a big one.
most of my learning experiences have been through making mistakes. Because when things go right, you don't generally look at them and say, why do they go right? That's the problem with us as humans is if something
Yeah,
goes right, you go, yes, that went right, but you don't go, why did that go right? But
yeah,
if
what did
something
I
goes
do right?
wrong, you're straight away, why did that go wrong? So you always tend to learn more when things go wrong than you do when things go right.
There was a real good Netflix interview, a movie about the Uruguayan president, whose name I just forgotten. That guy spent like 15 years in jail after being a revolutionary and so on. And what he said, they asked him the same question: "What do you tell young people?" And he said, "The worst times are the best times." It doesn't sound like that, but the worst times are the best times, since all that you need to learn, you learn from your worst times. So yeah, I would say if you have issues, embrace them. Just try to embrace them, try to overcome, persist, and things will happen. I mean, I'm not even sure for myself yet, but I am positive, and it brings a lot of joy, just having something out.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for coming and speaking to me
All
today,
right.
Mihail.